Folks, we're about to begin the services for Mrs. Nettie Meltzer. My name is Susan Winkelstein. I'm a funeral director with Chicago Jewish Funerals, and Hazan Stevensdorf from Congregation Beth Shalom of Northbrook will be officiating, and we will be bringing Mrs. Meltzer's casket over to the gravesite shortly.
First by cutting it. Okay, so you can see that you're wearing it on your left side, which is appropriate, as we learned for a parent. Any other spouse, sibling, a child, it's one on the right side. So this is a real statement of honor that we love our parents, honor our father, etc. So you're wearing it on the right side. There's a blessing we say that sometimes awkward. We say, blessed God when somebody I love is now missing. But the concept is that we bless God for the love and for the life. She's done good. So we do thank God for the sweetness. Say a blessing. Great. So we say this blessing. Adonai, Dayan Ha'emet. The last two words, Dayan Ha'emet, is the judge of truth. Adonai God gives, God takes, and He goes out. It's the beginning of your Shiva parade. The marking of the Shiva doesn't really begin until after the burial, of course. Ladies and gentlemen, there are several passages which are traditionally recited at a moment of burial that I'd like to begin with. And I ask you during this minute and a half or 2 moments of Hebrew recitation that you offer prayers of your own in Nettie's memory. הצור תמים פועלו כי חוד רחב משפט אל אמונה ועיניו ואל צדיק וישר הוא הצור תמים בכל פועל מיום עולם תפעל השליט ממטו ומעל מימית מחיה מוריד שול ויעד צדיק בכל דרכיו הצור תמים מרח אפיים ומלא רחמים חמן ומחוס נעלבות ובנים כי לך אדון הסליחות והרחמים אדם אם בן שנה יהיה או 1,000 שנים יחיה מה ירשון לו כלו יהיה ברוך דיין אמת מימית ומחיה ידענו אדוני כי צדק משפטך תצדק בדברך ותזכה בשופטיך ואין להר ערכר מידת שופטיך צדיק אתה אדוני וישר משפטך גדול עצה ורב הלליה אשר נך בכוחות על כל דרכי בני אדם לתת לאיש כדרכיו וכפרים על עליו להגיד כי ישר אדוני צורי ולא עוולתה בו אדוני נתן ואדוני לקח יהי שם אדוני מבורך והוא רחום יכפר עוון ולא ישחית והרבה להשיבה פה ולא יאיר כל חמתו. A brief translation. or a person to live a single year or be blessed with 1,000 years. Time is never enough when it's somebody that we love so dearly. We therefore, though, have praised you, God, the judge of truth, who has taken, sadly, Nettie's spirit back, but who is also the gifter of her beautiful life. We believe that your discretion is beyond us, God. We believe that the words that you have left us within the words of Torah and beyond are good. But your judgments at times in our lives have puzzled us, and we are sometimes deeply saddened over the harsh realities of life. Nettie was blessed with many beautiful, bountiful, and happy years, and thus we thank you specifically today for that. We accept the lots, and we remain holding on to the love that is within us forever. We ask you to share your grace and your comfort with those who mourn today. Help them maintain their strength and courage. Help them to live on as they would understand would make Nettie proud. Adonai Natan, you have given and you have taken, and yet we find reason to praise you, our God. Do we have earth? Do we have earth? Okay, that's all I needed. Thank you. This is earth from the land of Israel. It's from an area called Har HaZeitim, the Mount of Olives, which is a sacred and ancient burial place. So I'm going to sprinkle some of this on top of the casket. It's a way to connect Nettie to God, the eternity of our people, our history. We're doing so in word and in prayer, but this physically connects her to the sacredness of our home. Vayoshav ha'afar al ha'aretz keshahaya, the dust returns now into the earth. V'haruach tashuv el ha'elohim asher netana, but we pray to God that the soul can live in eternity. Grant strength, God, to those whose burden is sorrow today. We turn to you seeking comfort and light. Compassionate one, grant us solace. Reinforce our strength, even at moments of difficulty. Amen. Mizmor leDavid Adonai roi lo achshar, benoteh sheyarbedseini al mei menuchot yenahaleni. Nafshi yeshov v'yancheni v'maglei tzedek l'ma'an shemo. Cham ki yelech b'getz ha'mavet lo yirara ki atay madi. Shivtecha u'mishantecha hema yenachamuni. Taroch lefonai shulchan neged sorai. Shanto Hashem en roshi kosi revaya. Ach tov chesed yirdefuni kol yemei chayai v'shavti bevet Adonai leorech yamim. It's a selection from the book of Psalms, maybe the most familiar to all faiths who study the Bible. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me to lie down in green pastures, leads me beside the still waters. He restores my soul. He guides me in straight paths for his name's sake. And yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. The psalmist could have translated the Hebrew in many different ways, but I like the fact that the psalmist chooses the words, yea, though I walk through the valley. It doesn't say, God, sadness has befallen me. I am lost in the valley of tears. I am lost and overcome by the valley of darkness. I am held captive by the hole in my heart and the mire and the mud that I feel in my soul. It says, you're going to walk through this valley. You're going to get through. And with a mom who lived 98 years, it probably makes sense. You're going to get through. You're going to look back and you're going to smile. You're going to look at the children and the grandchildren and the great-grandchildren, and you're going to go, you know what? This was good. It was a good ride. Sometimes when it's a younger person, it's so much harder to imagine getting through. How do you get through? But the psalmist promises us that we can if we hold on to our faith, if we can hold on to family and a community like you, a community of friends to help us get through. We ultimately get through. Sometimes it takes professional help to get through. But if we can seek it out and find the help we need, the psalmist tells us, though I walk in this valley of the shadow of death, I will get through. You should know that a cemetery is also not called a house of the dry bones, the field of the dead, the pasture of the ghosts. A cemetery is called a Bet Chaim. It's called a house of life. Because these markers, these monuments, represent life, a life that mattered, a life that was important. It's not scary to be at a cemetery. It's uplifting to remember that even when we shall be gone someday, people will remember us. They'll think of us and our life will continue through them. That's what we're here to do today, to honor Nettie in that way, to let her know and let you know she's not gone. Physically, she's tired and she will be laid to her rest, but she's not gone. Jewish tradition says the spirit doesn't really even leave the proximity of her body until she's lowered into her grave and we say Kaddish. And with the first recitation of Kaddish, her soul begins to ascend, knowing that she's been cared for. Her body's been cared for and laid to rest, and now the soul can find its rest. So this is a day of affirmation, a day of love, a day of appreciation for your mom and your beloved family member. I have some personal words that aren't so personal because I didn't really know Nettie, but they are personal because Andrea and Richard, otherwise known as Andy and Rick, shared some time with me with Bonnie the other day in my office. And I have some words, and then Ari is going to speak on behalf of his dad and has a few extra words tossed in, and Steve will speak on behalf of you, Andy. When someone like Nettie has lived such a breadth of years, I like to note that sliced bread was invented in 1928. And therefore, Nettie was, for your family, the best thing since before sliced bread. I didn't have the chance to know her, as I made mention, but it's evident from the words that you shared with me the other day that she was an intricate persona. She could be quite opinionated and speak her mind, you told me, most often about your hair length or your beard or maybe your weight. She didn't hold back. And yet she was also known to prefer the quiet and solitude of being in her own company. You noted she would often, in her retirement building, not go down for social community meals, but rather just stay in her apartment and eat alone. And she was happy with her own company. She was blessed to be ever so self-sufficient in many ways that most 90-plus-year-olds cannot be. Her mind was blessed with clarity, and she even administered her own medications. Rick said he knew that she knew what each one was meant for. She knew the colors, she read the labels, and she was able to care for herself. She would check with her doctors about any and every prescription and would refuse medicine, even in the hospital, if she wasn't informed about it. When she started to become a little less mentally focused, she still had enough activity and acuity to challenge the medication, even if it was one of her regular medications, but it looked different because of a manufacturer's variant. Nettie needed to know she was in control. When asked what the title of her biography might be, her children agreed, One Tough Cookie. We will hear much more from them through their sons, and the blessing of how Nettie was able to retain her sharp and alert mind until very, very recently. The sad part of the story, unfortunately, obviously, is that she passed, and the final months were not as good as you would have wished. For it was during that time, I think you said it was February, there were tests taken, there were lesions found, her health began to fail, more lesions found, her mind began to falter. It wasn't the Nettie, the sharp and attentive and put together mom that you once knew, but yet you loved her. She became a little anxious, a little paranoid, even with her most trusted caregivers, and her family was less able to harness her wandering thoughts. You told me Nettie was a poet, and so I came upon a poem that I think is fitting for this moment. It's about a mother who confronted similar struggles with her own self, and it's called Two Mothers Remembered. I think it mentions something about being a daughter too, so understand it's meant for both of you. I had two mothers I claim, two different people, yet with the same name. Two separate women, diverse by design, but I love them both because they were mine. The first was the mother who carried me here, gave birth and nurtured and launched my career. She was the one whose features I bear, complete with the facial expressions I wear. She gave her love, which follows me yet, along with examples in life that she set. As I got older, she somehow younger grew, and we'd laugh just as mothers and children do. But then came the time that her mind clouded so, and I sensed that the mother I knew may soon go. So quickly she changed and turned into the other, a stranger who dressed in the clothes of my mother. Oh, she looked the same, at least at arm's length, but now she was the child, and I was her strength. We'd come full circle, we women three, my mother the first, the second, and me. And if my own children should come to a day when a new mother comes and the old goes away, I'd ask of them nothing that I didn't do. Love both of your mothers, as both have loved you. This period of time of sadness and less than, if you will, for Nettie was a small measure of time in her life, and for that we must be ever so thankful and appreciate. We should honor her story and history of being a loving daughter to Abraham and Anna Rachel, a wife to Louis for 45 years, a sister to Harry and Sarah, and Hyman, who I learned passed away in serving our country at a young age of only 23. She was mother to Andrea and Irving, Richard and Bonnie, grandma to Ari and Abby, Cheryl and David, Adam and Vicky, and Stuart. She also lived to know great-grandchildren, Michaela, Liam, Matthew, Courtney, Nicole, Shayna, Evan, Mason, and Sean. With her passing comes as a true end of an era, but yet with all of those names you've heard me read, it comes with so much promise for a bright future for this family. And now is time to hear from family. So we'll call upon Ari and then Steve.
So my dad was originally going to speak himself, but the dry run was anything but dry, so he asked me to speak on his behalf. So these are my dad's words through the mouth of his body double, or his stand-in, if you will. I want to tell you a few things about my mother that you probably didn't know. Mom did not have an easy life. She lost her mother when she was only 14. Raised by an Orthodox father who was extremely strict and very old-fashioned, she was forced to go through a Shiva period that no teenager could endure. Her father was estranged from his brothers and cousins. Mom never found out why, but it resulted in a very lonely upbringing. Her older brother Harry, who was 10 years older than her, didn't get along with their father and was kicked out of the house. As a result, Mom didn't have much contact with him. This continued throughout Harry's life until he contacted Mom right before his death. I only met Harry a few times. Then another event occurred that truly altered her life. Her other brother Hyman, who was only 13 and a half months older than her, was killed in action in 1944. He was only 23 years old, and the two of them were very close. I was named after him. Losing the two people closest to her dramatically altered Mom's feelings about God and about life. But things did get better. Mom met my father Lou, and she was introduced to the Meltzer family. This was a close family of sisters and brothers and cousins and more cousins that she never had growing up. So my parents fell in love, were married, raised a family, and lived happily ever after. No, not exactly. This wasn't a true fairy tale. Mom was officially a dictaphone operator and executive secretary, but her side jobs were money manager, expert shopper, and dedicated friend. Money was tight, but Mom and Dad worked hard to raise their family. We had the annual vacations in South Haven or Union Pier, where we really got to know our cousins, sometimes sleeping only feet apart. When I wanted to go to overnight camp for 4 weeks, they found a way to send me to Camp Wapaka. The annual Christmas Hanukkah party at Aunt Ethel and Uncle Maury's might not have been kosher to my Orthodox raised mother, but it was family tradition, what she had longed for her entire life. Another tradition that Mom loved was the assembly line that we had in the kitchen every year, making candied sweet potatoes to bring to Aunt Anne's and Uncle Sam's for Thanksgiving. Yes, Mom was definitely frugal, but she was also kind-hearted. She sent small checks to charities and, to my chagrin, to almost anyone that asked for money to save Social Security. When my father got sick, Mom became his caregiver. When my father passed away almost 30 years ago, Mom learned how to drive so she could keep her independence. A few years later, she moved to a nicer condo with an elevator, so once again, she could be on her own. Those of you who knew Mom know how sharp her mind was, even at 96 and 97. She had many medical problems and certainly was very set in her ways, but she loved her family and tried to keep in touch with everyone. Toward the end, she started being a pen pal with her great-granddaughter Shayna, but wasn't able to continue. She outlived all her local friends, but still kept in touch with a few out-of-town cousins and friends. It was quite a surprise when her mind betrayed her at 98. She was very hard of hearing, and even with hearing aids, it was difficult communicating with her the last 6 months. But at the end, she didn't trust anyone and began hallucinating. The nurses and doctors at Journey Care referred to her as one tough old lady. She certainly was. With Mom's passing, many of you noticed that she is being buried next to my father in the last plot in the Meltzer family section. A great family that I'm proud to be part of. Mom, say hi to everyone for me. We love you very much, and we'll certainly miss you. And before I step away, my daughter Shayna, who had an 8-year-old daughter who had a really sweet relationship with her great-grandmother. We live on the East Coast. They don't see each other that much, but she loved to call her Bubby Nettie and to have conversations. When we spoke with her just a couple weeks ago, so at the end of her life, when she was hard of hearing, the frequency of an 8-year-old girl, for whatever reason, she just couldn't understand. So we frequently, I would serve as translator for her, but she would still have this conversation with Nettie where she would hear every word Nettie said. She would speak the words, we would translate the words, and Nettie would hear those words back. And the last time that they spoke, just 2 or 3 weeks ago, Nettie said, "Next time we'll talk for longer. Next time we'll talk for longer." And that still sticks out to Shayna. So Shayna wanted to share these words. "I miss you very much. I admire you and look up to you and want to be like you. You are an amazing person," with a great big sad emoji.
Well, if you think the dry run with Rick was not so dry, you should have seen the dry run with my mother. So I've got some words to read on her behalf. Ari, wonderful. I loved hearing it. This is the 3rd time I've heard you speak at a funeral, and every single time I wonder how the guy got stuck after you going. So now I'm up here, but these are my mom's words she asked me to read today. "When I think of all that I learned from you, there are so many things that I am thankful for. Through the many years of watching you cut coupons and taking you shopping, I learned to be a better shopper. I also have inherited many of your recipes, and your kugel recipe, which I make for my grandchildren, is one of our favorites. It's become a tradition for me to bring them a kugel every time we visit, and they usually call me to remind me not to forget it. Your talent for writing poems for birthdays, anniversaries, and special occasions is something that I also have been lucky enough to inherit. I used to think that everyone could write great poems, but I now know that is a talent that you had and have passed on to me. Our talent went beyond poems. As you wrote beautiful thank you cards and letters, I have inherited so much from you as well. I am proud of you for overcoming your fear of driving and getting your license at the age of 70 so you could remain an independent after Dad died, even though you scared so many driving instructors and yes, family members teaching you. I am so very proud of you. We treasure all of the memories of time shared over the span of so many years. We were lucky enough to travel together, South Haven, Las Vegas, London. Each of these trips were enjoyed by you and Dad, me and Irv, our children as well. Memories we will always remember and cherish. You've earned so many titles, Mom, Grandma, Bobby. Today we honor you. We remember all of the wonderful times we have shared, the memories that we have created together, from the apple juice and cheese at your Bay Colony apartment, to the candies you put out at the place on Milwaukee, to the Christmas dinners at Gidwitz that we had such a great tradition. Most of all, we thank you for all that you have done for us in the good times, in the difficult times. We all love you, and we will miss you, all of us. Thank you.
Norman Lear, Henry Kissinger, Betty White are all contemporaries of Nettie, each known for significant accomplishments in politics or the arts. Nettie was known for her poetry and her kugel. Not a bad resume. Each of them have witnessed history: women's rights, Pearl Harbor, man on the moon, the Holocaust, 9/11, computers, microwaves, smartphones, the bra, electric razors, stopwatches, zippers, ballpoint pens, microphones, sewing machines, television, plasma, disposable diapers, and sliced bread. Nettie Meltzer was one of those great additions to her family's world. She was a tough cookie, but she was your cookie. I hope the days to come will erase the difficult moments of recent weeks and months, and I'm sure her memory will continue to turn that little frown into a smile. May she rest in peace. I mentioned to Ari that your words notwithstanding, which were beautiful, that maybe he place his daughter's letter on top of the casket and let it remain. So if you want to just take that top sheet or your sheet, the Jewish star has a little bit of space under it. You can tuck it in. Just be very careful near the grave. I'm going to recite a memorial prayer at this time. If you're comfortable to stand, please do, and then we'll say Kaddish. המצא מנוחה נכונה תחת כנפי השכינה במעלות קדושים וטהורים כזוהר רקיע המזהירים את נשמת נחמה בת אברהם וחנה רחל שלחה בגן עדן תמנוחתה, אנא בעל הרחמים, אז תיראה בסתר כנפיך לעולמים, וצרור בצרור, החיים את נשמתה, אדוני הוא נחלתה, ותנוח בשלום על משכבה, ונאמר Amen. God, by your light do we see light. Illumine the darkness that has befallen this family. Help them to embody the worthy qualities of their beloved. Grant them the determination and strength to extend her life by helping to enrich the lives of others. Thus will Nettie's presence continue among them. Thus their family's life will continue in spite of this sad day. And thus her memory will endure as a blessing forever. Amen. We're going to recite the Mourner's Kaddish at this time. Yit Gadal, Yit Kadash, Shemei Rabbah, Ve'alma Divara Kirute, Ve'yamlich Malchute, B'chayechon, U'v'yom Echon, ובחיי דכל בית ישראל, בעגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מברך לעולם ולעלמי עלמיה. יפרח וישתבח ויפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא. ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי קודשה בריחו. לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, דאמירן בעלמה ואמרו אמן. יהי שלמה רבה מן שמיה, וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו. As you witness behind me, the gentlemen are beginning to assist us in laying Nettie into her eternal resting place, her bed, if you will. After they finish and they place the vault cover on top, we've been asked to participate in the mitzvah of placing some earth on top of the vault cover. Jewish tradition is we put 3 measures of earth, 3 small scoops, or if there is the larger shovel behind us, and then put the shovel back down, let the next person take on that beautiful act of genuine love for somebody by laying her into her rest, if you will, tucking her into bed. Is a nice way to think about it. And then that next person can pick up that mitzvah on their own rather than you turning around and handing them then a responsibility. It's really a sacred act, even though it's a difficult one. So when the gentlemen here have completed their task, you'll be invited forward. You can be seated at this time. The words of Kaddish end with Oseh Shalom B'mromav, God, please grant peace to the heavens above, where this soul, the sweet soul of Nettie will dwell. We ask God to shower some of that peace upon all of us as well. Oseh Shalom B'mromav, Hu Yaseh Shalom Aleinu, Ve'al Kol Yisrael, V'imru, Amen. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Amen. Some of you may wish to use the larger shovel. If not, we have a pail of, it's like sand, I believe, right, Susan? Sand. There's little cups that you can use to scoop it in. And then we have a trash receptacle for the cups. Don't throw them in the grave as well. Just the sand. The number 3 in Jewish life shows intention in an action that we do. If we do something once, it could have been an accident. Or twice is a small curiosity of, I wonder if I can do it again. But a 3rd time shows there must be a reason I'm doing this. And we want to show that this is a purposeful act of placing earth into the grave as a genuine act of laying Nettie to her necessary rest, an act that she cannot repay you in any way, shape, or form. So we do 3. Again, using the small cups or the shovel, it's the same gesture. Don't overwhelm yourself. I know it's warm outside. Do what you can. If then you would like to return to your cars, you're welcome to. If you want to remain for the remainder of the total coverage, you're welcome to stay with me and others who may choose to do that. And
You gotta realize Nettie reused everything and kept everything, so she may want those used cups.
if you want us to, Rick was saying Nettie was a recycler, if you will, never wasting anything. So the cups might, take it home and use it as a shot glass. And toast her every so often. We'll do our best to not waste. when you do come forward, if you wish to come forward, we're going to allow the family certainly to go first. And then we'd ask you to move away from the grave so there's no accidental bumping into somebody. We've had strange incidents before. So just once you're done, move further away from the graveside if you would. I know there seem to be a lot of rules, however. When you step towards the grave, if you're going to use the larger shovel, please be careful of Mrs. Cogan's headstone. Just you turn around and you might not see it. I don't want you to get hurt. Those of you who wish to use the smaller cups can come to the far right side, and others can patiently wait for the other to finish with the shoveling.
Hazan store mentioned any of you that want to use the bucket can certainly come up and the cups are inside the Anyone else is coming up to use the shovel, please do that at this time.
David, you'll text us. We want to check it.
I'll text you.
I have to go with my thing. You know, I should do what she wants. That is I like Russell. You have so many family and friends here, so. Second Saturday.
Multi-purpose.
Bye-bye. I'm going to take off. Nice seeing you.
It's like, I know, I feel bad, but it's like, don't have a problem. But I go, it's like, no, I get it.
So sorry.
Put the cover around the jacket of the book. You guys throw it in there.
Lost track of the day.
The family has requested that memorial contributions be made to Congregation Beth Shalom of Northbrook. This information is in the service pamphlets that you have, or otherwise it's on our website. And please, friends and family that are joining us online, on our website there is a space that you can express your personal condolences to the family. This does conclude the service. Thank you.